Good afternoon. Welcome to this webinar on performing PCI DSS assessments using Zero Trust Principles. My name is Kishore Vaswani, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of ControlCase. A little bit about ControlCase. So we at ControlCase focus on IT compliance, IT certification, and related continuous compliance services. We basically make sure that we provide a partnership approach to customers to helping them get compliant, get certified, as well as remain certified on an ongoing basis. The two key areas that we always focus on at ControlCase, and it is especially true in the world of the remote assessment, is having a partnership approach to customers versus being a checklist auditor, but then also using automation to automate the remote aspects of the assessment. And so these two key pillars of ControlCase are prevalent, whether it's in an on-site or an off-site based assessment. And here are some of the assessments we work with customers on. This is not an exhaustive list. We do many assessments for customers, and this is just an example of some of the most popular IT-related assessments we work with customers on. So let's get into, before we get into remote assessments using Zero Trust Principles, let's talk about PCI DSS for those of you who are new. PCI DSS was established by the PCI Security Standards Council, and it really provides guidelines and a framework for ensuring protection of cardholder data and protection of cardholder data across processing, storing, and transmitting across the entire ecosystem, ranging from acquiring banks to merchants to service providers. There are various requirements of PCI DSS. They can be broadly classified into maintaining a secure network, protecting cardholder data through encryption in storage and transmission, maintaining a vulnerability management program, implementing strong access control measures, both logical and physical, regularly monitoring and testing networks using penetration testing, scanning, and so forth, and then, of course, having an information security policy and related procedures. That was a brief on ControlCase and about PCI DSS. Let's get into our current state. As we all are very well aware, everybody is, or most companies are implementing work from home policies, which challenge the traditional IT cybersecurity programs. Because of the current situation, organizations are expected to consider and find out new ways of how, A, to work from home, and then B, how to make sure you can still remain compliant and secure while working from home. So that, that is in a nutshell, our current state. Some companies, and there are companies across the spectrum. There are some companies which have been used to working from home and are very well set for it. And there are a lot of other companies that had to define the new normal for themselves in this environment on how to work from home and be productive. Obviously, the PCI Security Standards Council also has published guidelines for assessors on the topic of remote assessments. The PCI Council has been a great partner in providing all the different aspects of how assessments should be done and how PCI DSS should be looked at in this era. And obviously, that is due to restrictions on travel and physical meetings as a result of COVID-19. At ControlCase, the four key pillars that we have and we provide to our customers when we do remote assessments is automation and collection of evidence, whether it's workstations or servers, ensuring we are able to identify sensitive cardholder data within workstations and within infrastructures, ability to perform remote vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, and ensuring logs, whether it's from the side of workstations or infrastructure, are appropriately looked at and analyzed. So We talked about, the era we find ourselves in, where companies have to work from home. We as assessors have to do fully remote assessments. For all of you who are well aware, we absolutely were required, and we always did on-site assessments. But in this new era, that's one of the things that has changed. And so all of us, companies have had to define how they work from home. We as assessors and ControlCase as a QSA have had to figure out how to fully do an assessment remotely in this new era. And so the next section, which is going to be the meat of the presentation, we're going to go through requirement by requirement, and we will touch on items that really overlay both aspects. Companies who have had to learn to work from home and what they need to look at from a work from home perspective. Nothing changes from a cardholder data environment perspective in the data center or the cloud, but we're going to be focusing on really providing you with a list of things you can look at per requirement and see how, if you're a company, you can match it against your work from home workforce and go through that list. Obviously, us as assessors also have certain things on how we would need to test things remotely. And so we have included all of them by requirement in the next section of this presentation. And again, I'm not going to go through all of these, but there are 12 requirements. And so we will go through individually each requirement and its implication from a zero trust principle. So firewalls, which is requirement 1 of PCI DSS. Requirement 1 of PCI DSS is around firewalls for all of you who are familiar with PCI DSS. This, obviously, the role of the DMZ and things like that doesn't change on the infrastructure side. When it comes to work from home and employee workstations or devices working from home, personal firewalls become extremely important, because it is important to make sure that company or employee-owned laptops and workstations have personal firewalls, and only the right connectivity between the workstation and the company infrastructure is allowed. So that's an important part. It should also be noted that the employee should not be able to disable the personal firewall software. They should not have the access rights accidentally or intentionally to disable or modify the configuration of the personal firewall software. And then absolutely, a PCI DSS assessment would not be complete in this new world unless we make sure that inbound and outbound access rules at the personal firewall level are included as part of business as usual by the company, and certainly from a semi-annual perspective for us as assessors. So really, requirement 1 as it relates to work from home, would really surround and have topics around personal firewalls. Again, we will be sending a copy of these slides and a recording of this webinar, so you will have this list as we send it out. Number 2, configuration scans. Number 2 talks about configuration standards, and so it is important that there be configuration scans of the workstations. Some companies are well set for it. Some companies may have to implement software and technology to do it. Also, maintaining an inventory of workstations is an important aspect of how we go about ensuring that the entire workforce is appropriately covered within configuration scans. When we talk about protecting stored cardholder data, there are 2 vectors that come out. Number 1 is ensuring that individuals do not have access to be able to store cardholder data on their workstations working from home. Obviously, because physical security is almost impossible to maintain in a work from home environment, we have to use the next best aspect, which is A, the cardholder data does not get to the workstation, or there's no vector for it. And then number 2, make sure cardholder data scanning is happening at a higher frequency, just in case it does make its way to the workstation. So increasing the frequency of cardholder data discovery scanning, ensuring that any data that is found is securely deleted. And then, as I said, these are secondary steps. The first step is really trying to make sure you're reducing the exposure of full card numbers to be able to make its way to employee work from home workstations. When we talk about protect cardholder data in transmission, essentially all the vectors boil down to making sure any internet-based access or any end user messaging applications are encrypted, so that if an employee, again, first of all, an employee should not be able to access full cardholder data, but for business reasons, if they are, it should be over encrypted channels, preferably over something like a Citrix where cardholder data cannot be downloaded. Certainly, strong encryption protocol should be used. You had to use VPN connections, and then prohibit using unofficial email and end user messaging applications for sharing of cardholder data. Requirement number 5 spans across antivirus and malware. This was probably a requirement that was already existent. Most companies were compliant, and this continues to be an important aspect where all work from home workstations should have antivirus installed, updated, and then even though they're connected from the home network, users should not be able to disable the antivirus or malware solution. From a secure applications perspective, obviously nothing changes on the web application side, but on the workstation side, ability to deploy patches remotely, ability to ensure regular vulnerability management is done on the workstations, and ensuring that the development workstations do not have access to remote production environments is an important piece. Let's move on to requirement 7, which is access control. And when we talk about access control, no regular user should be able to access any system within cardholder data environment that stores, processes, or transmits bulk cardholder data. I've put the exception of power users, which can be defined, in different ways, maybe as system administrators. Obviously, even they should not be able to download bulk data. And then from an access controls perspective, ensuring more so than ever, and really on a more continuous compliance basis, that people with absolute need should be given access from a logical perspective. So need to know basis access along with least privileges must be implemented. This was always the case. It becomes even more important in today's world to be able to do that. From a requirement 8 perspective, again, this was always a requirement, but this becomes the most important requirement out there, using two-factor authentication. I can't stress the importance of this, using two-factor authentication in accessing the cardholder data environment. Using two-factor authentication, for example, if you're using Office 365, that may go beyond PCI DSS, but phishing has taken a new meaning in this last 3 months because of the new normal. Companies are all getting used to a new normal. People are not sitting face to face across each other to be able to verify that they sent each other the email. And so two-factor authentication from an email perspective, from a cardholder data environment perspective, from ensuring you use that before you pay your invoices or change things on your financial system has taken a new meaning. And I can't stress enough how important two-factor authentication is, not only in the context of security to cardholder data, but really protection of business as a whole, and ensuring that phishing is not successful on enterprises. Physical security. Obviously, there is, I think we all acknowledge there's no realistic way to control physical access of personnel working from home. So we got to do the next best thing. Number 1, ensure that no cardholder data can reach an individual working from home. If they're on the phone, cardholder data can be blocked through masking. If you're on the screen, it can be blocked through Xing out the multiple digits from here, ensuring that technology such as Citrix that provide a virtualized environment so data cannot be viewed from working from home. All these techniques are extremely important in today's era because you got to acknowledge the fact that physical security, while can be enforced in the data center, it just cannot be enforced at home, period. And so you got to use the other controls to make sure that cardholder data cannot make its way to someone's home as the first and foremost control. And then from an assessor's perspective, obviously we have had to always review, do physical on-site visits as obviously the main mechanism of ensuring physical security. In today's world, we have seen that we have to use mobile cameras, CCTV images, badge access control logs, and various other such techniques to be able to do a physical visit. Admittedly, it takes more time, and so everyone should be prepared both on the assessor side and the assessee side to spend, anywhere from 2x to 3x the amount of time that it typically takes to do a visit on site to kind of do it remotely. Obviously, there's some savings on the actual travel time to the physical side. From a logging and monitoring perspective, again, user activity logging on all workstations should be done. This is very important to ensure when we're doing logging that all the workstations are synchronized from a time server perspective. So time on the workstations should be enforced by the enterprise, because otherwise it's difficult to correlate between workstations and between workstations and the infrastructure as well. Vulnerability assessment, penetration testing should be conducted as usual, but there's an additional scenario here. Penetration testing, which emulates work from home user scenario, must be performed as part of both internal as well as external penetration tests, as must phishing, because again, as I said, phishing has become a big vector across the board. And then finally, while most people are well aware, people should be trained on, if they have Wi-Fi at home, how they can make sure that they are accessing their Wi-Fi securely as really as a concept of multiple layers of security. So, we went through different requirements. As I said, we will be sending out a copy of these slides as well as a recording of this webinar, and you will have a list of things you can just compare against your individual companies and just make sure it's either happening or you're actually thinking about it. And we wanted to make it a tactical webinar so you could actually take things out of here and then use it in your environments. As we move towards the end of the presentation, let me talk a little bit about ControlCase's remote assessment methodology. And our three key areas of focus when we talk about remote assessments have been, number one, automation. Number two, how do we do the physical visit without actually being physically present? And then number three, we acknowledged in this work from home scenario, a point in time might not be sufficient. Really, a continuous compliance approach is what's needed because things change more dynamically things have changed more dynamically in the last 3 months. So automation for remote work from home testing. Again, 4 components that we at ControlCase are providing to our customers. Number one is automated collection of evidence. So wherever we can, we are providing automated collection evidence engine for our customers. Number two, data discovery. We are providing the software to our customers to be able to scan workstations remotely. Of course, we continue to scan the infrastructure from a CDE perspective. We are including technology to do remote vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. And then finally, we are ensuring that we are analyzing the logs to ensure they are properly reporting from a work from home perspective. And all these 4 activities are done using technology we provide to our customers who are our certification customers. That was number 1, was automation. Number 2, to enable remote assessments, we as assessors have been maintaining our structure of exactly what we do for an on-site audit and are not losing it, but instead using video calls and screen sharing to provide evidence and conduct interviews as part of the assessment. What that has resulted in, as we have seen, is it takes significantly more time because obviously when you're sitting across a person face-to-face versus doing it over a webinar and not able to shoulder surf and things like that, it just takes a longer time. So we are, both us and the customers, we're telling them to prepare for an additional amount of time versus our traditional techniques that we have done in the past. Number 3, data center reviews. We are making sure we're using mobile cameras, CCTV images, and photographs, and sometimes they're live, sometimes they are screenshots, depends on the situation, depends on what other certifications that data center has. And then technology, again, which includes technology such as this, to be used between the assessor, which is us, and the organization. Again, we're getting close to the end of our webinar, so please feel free to put any questions you have in the questions window. The last piece is continuous compliance enablement. Examples include making sure more frequently we're looking that the right logs are reporting, user access reviews are done, making sure firewall rules and rule sets, both from a work from home perspective as well as a network infrastructure perspective, are done. And so continuous compliance in this more dynamic world is more important than ever because things are changing at a far rapid pace than they have in the past. As usual with ControlCase, you can expect a partnership approach, a full set of technologies that are available to all of our customers for making the remote assessment process a little bit more streamlined, and then focusing on continuous compliance. Please feel free to go to our website and download a free ebook on performing PCI DSS assessments using Zero Trust principles. That being said, thank you for your time, and now we will answer questions that you may have in your, please put them in the questions window. The first question we have is, how do call centers who used to traditionally work from the office have to adapt to working from home? And that's a great question. When we talk about call centers, there are two important components to making sure that compliance is maintained. The first one is the workstations aspect, right? So the workstations, I went through a bunch of controls early on. The workstations need to be configured in a secure manner, whether it's the antivirus, the anti-malware, configuration scanning, personal firewall, all those different things. So more important than ever, the call center agents who are working from home need to have that enabled and should not have the ability to disable that. And the second most important vector is that because you cannot enforce physical security at home, you had to ensure that card data does not make its way to the agent. And there's a whole range of technologies out there that ensure that that can be done. The next one is, from a file integrity monitoring perspective, how does that play in? And the answer is, from a workstation perspective, depending on how the workstations are configured, file integrity monitoring becomes an important part of workstation access or workstation controls as well. The next question is, will a video recording qualify as an evidence for a physical security evidence? And the answer is it depends. it depends on various scenarios. It could either be a part of a bigger set of evidence. So maybe a video recording in conjunction with a badge access and the right access logs that have been authenticated could make a part of an evidence. Or it could be as simple as a live event. It just depends on how comfortable the assessor and the assessee are and trying to figure out that the control exists in the right manner. The next question is the ControlCase ACE a separate tool the client has to buy? The answer is no. All our technology, at ControlCase, all our technology is available to all our customers to make their certification experience better. So we are an IT certification and continuous compliance company. Our technology footprint supports those two offerings of IT certifications and continuous compliance. We don't sell software, we do certifications, and we help in providing a continuous compliance services, and all our technology is in support of that. That was the last question I had. So thank you everybody for attending this. We will be sending out a copy of the slides. Don't forget to download the ebook, and don't forget to register for future webinars. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach us out at contact@controlcase.com. Thank you everybody, and have a great day.